Elevate TV, advancing kingdom lifestyle.
Good morning. This is Morning Digest Wednesday edition and Elevate Television, advancing kingdom lifestyle. And today we deal with matters crisis. And as we look at crisis today, there are two important words we must not lose: crisis and opportunity. For the Chinese, when they use the word crisis, in the middle of that word, they have a place where it's not basically meaning opportunity, but it means that it is a crucial moment. It is a time when it's called an incipient moment, when things must change and things must come alive. For the Japanese, it's better, for they say this, it means opportunity. It is made up of two words, kiki. The first one means danger. The second word means it is an opportunity. For us here, opportunity comes when there is crisis. And let me tell you, opportunity is always in every part of your life. And today, as we look into this matter, we are going to be dealing with the opportunities in life, the opportunities around you, and every place you go, there is an opportunity. My guest today has traveled all the way from West Africa, and this is none other than Abiola. He'll be with us today discussing this matter. He's a man, you need to get ready, get your pen. But before we go there, let's go online, the link is already out on Facebook and on YouTube. Please pick it up and let's share it. I am picking mine on Facebook, Elevate TV. If you have not liked the page, please do that quickly. Pick it. There you go, Elevate TV, Morning Digest, Wednesday Morning Digest. There you go. And on YouTube, do the same. And then you can, there I go. YouTube, I'm on, and the link is up. Great. Yeah, there you go. Wednesday Morning Digest, you're there. So let's pick it up. Let's put it up on air. Those of you on Elevate Television, welcome. But take this, send it to your friends, send it to your, all your contacts on your phone. Listen, a little sharing of such a little, what looks like a little program can change, can save, and can help somebody somewhere who is waiting for an answer. You could be that answer. Please share this and don't stop at sharing. Let no devil stop you at sharing. Abiola, welcome. This is Elevate Television, and it's good to have you.
Good morning. Thank you.
Here we say Karibu Kenya.
Muiruri sana.
Asante sana.
Asante sana.
Wow, you've learned your words, eh?
Yes.
Welcome. We really appreciate that you came, and we are grateful to have you on Elevate TV.
Absolutely.
We are dealing with the matters opportunity, and by the way, Wednesday edition is more or less a youth program.
Wow, that's fantastic.
A lot of youth, young people, and the reason why we chose this one for young people is because we need to keep opening opportunities for young people to see what is ahead. We have this, I don't know if you have it in Nigeria, here we have the common saying, there are no jobs, there is no work, we need help, government help, yeah, somebody help me. But my approach and the approach of this Wednesday Digest is this: there is something you can do to change your life.
Absolutely.
And that is still in you.
Absolutely.
Please invite, the people. Let's hear you. Introduce yourself.
It's exciting to be here live in Kenya. My name is Abiola Oshunniyi. I'm a tri-sector expert. Build experience around different sectors of development, international development, the private sector, and also government, working with government. But more importantly, I believe in finding opportunities, and that's one of the things that has actually built my path as a person. I say it, and I dare to say it every single time. And like you rightly said, there is opportunity in crisis, and I will be sharing quite a number of things. So I invite you to tell your friends, and let them come on board. Let's have a conversation and
Let's
have a conversation. It's exciting that it's actually a youth edition, because the strength of the future is in the youth.
I tell you,
the strength of a nation is in its youth.
Yeah.
The direction a nation or a people will go is determined by its youth, not by the old men. It is by the youth. So if the youth let anything happen, yes, if the youth let anything happen, they have allowed it to happen. This is going to be an exciting time. I must say.
I'm not saying we're in a crisis moment, but we've just come out from a major crisis globally.
Yes.
The COVID lockdowns and the COVID pandemic. and we'll be discussing that.
Yes.
But just for a beginner, what would you call a crisis? And what would be crisis to you may not be crisis to somebody else.
Yes.
One man told me something very interesting. There was a young man who was wanted to end his life. He had a debt of I think 20,000 Kenyan shillings. 20,000, that's about $200. And the man told the young man, I think you are not serious with life. That's a very small amount. Even if they were to come, let them pick what they want.
Yeah.
That's a very small amount. He said I had 2 billion of debt.
Exactly.
2 billion debt. So and say the same pressure you have to pay 2,000, 20,000. I have the same one.
Pressure for 2 billion.
2 billion. And I'm not ending my life.
Absolutely.
So what is crisis to you?
So let me describe it as such. There are usually points in a person's life where you seem to feel like you're at a crossroad.
Yeah.
Where, decisioning or even the capacity to make decision does not exist.
I like that.
The capacity to make the decision. You don't have enough information.
Yeah.
You don't have enough resources to make the decision. One too many times as a person I've been there, and I can tell you every day you wake up in the morning, you are literally changed with a challenge or a crisis. The question is the degree of what that crisis is. So fundamentally, a crisis is significantly a crossroad where it's a defining moment where you know that your resource or your competence, fundamentally cannot handle some certain things. You can't just go into it without analyzing and assessing the situation, because it's a make or break moment. In reality,
you're using very hard words.
Yes,
analyzing, and that is good because we're talking about it. Because in a crisis, I think sometimes we don't think through it.
Yes,
we just look at a crisis and panic. But
absolutely,
sometimes I think when somebody sits down and thinks about it, you look at, okay, this is where I am. What is, how deep am I? How deep am I in this world?
Absolutely.
And how high can I go? How high can I jump?
Yes.
What can lift me
Yes.
up? What do I have? What resources do I have?
Yes.
And so because of that lack of capacity to make the decision, I think that's when somebody goes down.
Absolutely.
Tell me, you said you've been in crisis. One more, you say one too often.
Yes.
I'm looking for, because I'm more practical.
Yes.
Apart from, we can discuss things and then later not end up solving something.
Absolutely.
I'm looking at practical issues and practical things. For instance, we all know we are in Africa.
Yes.
You finish your school, you go to college with this big degree. Then, the way, graduation, when you throw those caps
Yes.
up and, you have this full of life.
Yes.
And you are about to hit the road. They say, there's something we used to say in college, out there.
Yeah, out there.
There's a place called out there.
Absolutely.
When you hit that out there, you begin to discover life is not college.
Very true. Very true.
And you begin to meet realities. How can you have 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. The best thing you have is your documents.
Absolutely.
How do you challenge yourself?
So I give you a practical example, and this is, and I give you a little bit of a background. So I like to say I was born with a golden spoon. What is a silver spoon? I come from royalty, a line of royalty on both sides of the family. But quite interestingly, my dad died while I was very young, so my mom was left to be the sole provider. Quite interestingly, she did put us through school, sold everything she had as property, so we did go through school. Difficult as it may, many times we went to bed with no food. Many times we went to bed with, not being able to imagine what you would eat the next morning. But that kind of shaped my mindset of saying every single time that you seem to be at a crossroad, there was an opportunity for you to learn something. The most important thing is the mindset, why you are there. The mindset of a person. Now, and that's just one side. I'm giving you a background so you get a sense of that I am really familiar with getting stuck. Now, getting into the university, right? So we have in West Africa what we call the West African Examination Certificate, which is your cross between the secondary school and the university. Now, with my West African certificate, I had to resit a couple of times to get all my papers correctly. Not that I was not a brilliant student, but I did not just conform to standards. Now, I try to say, and I tell any young person listening to me today, certificates don't define you. And I'm a true testament of that. Your certificate is only an evidence of part of the knowledge you have, what the school gives to you. However, and I can tell you globally right now, people are focusing more on skills and competencies rather than your certificate. So the missing piece is that school does not teach you competencies and skill sets.
Wow. School doesn't.
School does not.
They don't.
Now, you need to re-educate yourself and be a student of life to be able to find those skills and competencies that makes you outstanding. For instance, how does school teach you prudence? How does school teach you time management? How does school teach you resource control, personal resource control? How does school teach you courage to be able to articulate what you have? Critical skills that young people should have right now, things like problem solving, analytical skills. It's not anywhere in school. I don't think there's any course, there's nothing like that. Now, so at certain points while in school, for me to be able to go through school, not that my mom couldn't fund my education, but because I studied urban and regional planning as a background. So I'm an urban planner. And for anybody that understands urban planning is so close to architecture, you do a lot of diagrams, drawings, and because of how Africa is, and while I went to school, we do a lot of things on paper. I give it in dollars, so I know the Kenyan people can connect to dollars. Just the table for me while I was in school was already over $2,000.
Wow.
How do I afford the table? So I had to, work with friends, work with older colleagues, or sleep in the studio in school. Now, those were times I could say I could drop out of school or, move on to doing something else. But it gave me an opportunity to do one thing, to build a critical skill, which was networking with people.
Wow.
Now, every single time, like I said, that you have a challenge, there's an opportunity for you to learn and build a skill and use that platform to rise above the circumstance. In reality, challenges test your character and gives you the ability to build new skills.
Wow.
They test your character.
They test your character, give you ability to build new skills.
If you choose to learn from them. So at that point, right, I had to be prudent. I had to understand that if I had, let's say, a kg of rice, right? What creative way can I, and that's the only thing I have. So my favorite food till date, is
rice.
is rice. So I have to be creative about how my rice tastes. So today it might be vegetable rice. Tomorrow it might be coconut rice. You just have to be creative. And at that point, right, if I go out there, you don't need to know I ate rice in the morning. I come out as confident as if I had a full complement of an English breakfast from a luxury 4-star or 5-star hotel. What's the difference? You can't x-ray my stomach and see what's in there. I am the one that projects to you what you see there. I learned quickly from someone that told me that I could actually buy clothes from a bend-down boutique. Boutique. What you call bend-down boutique?
Yeah, we call it second-hand.
Second-hand, yes. And I could actually pick up those clothes, launder them very well, wash them. Now, I can't take it to the laundry because I don't have the money to do that. Wash them, right? I starch them, iron them. That could be the only shirt that I'll be able to wear to an interview. But I would turn up as if I was coming from a superstar home. So sometimes one of the biggest things we always don't find is during the time of crisis, just to add on to what I'm saying, is you begin to assess yourself and say, what gaps do I have as a person? Now, in between my competence and capacity right now, or in between my financial means right now, how can I meet some of those things? I can't meet all. It's impossible. So, for instance, I remember that while I got out of university, I did not want to actually, there's something called, you have it as NYS here. We call it NYSC, National Youth Service Corps. So after university, you actually serve the nation for a period of about a year, mandatory. Now, the government gives you a stipend. you are shipped off to another part of the country. And if you get a sense of how large Nigeria is, Nigeria is over 200 million people. Our landmass is significantly big, you know, so you're shipped, and each state, you're about 36 states plus the FCT. So, you know, and each state is almost representative of some countries in terms of population. For instance, Lagos has roughly more than 25 million people, and you still have people coming into Lagos every single day. You know, so it gives you a sense of when they ship you. I was born in Lagos. I schooled out of Lagos in Oyo State. Of course, I could have decided to go to a federal school, which was cheap, but the competition was too stiff. And because I did not get all my papers at first, I went to another school, right? Now, going to that school, I even went through what you call a preliminary program, a diploma program to get into school. Now, all this should have been daunting, right? This should have said, I wanted to study architecture. I ended up studying urban and regional planning. When I got into urban and regional planning, and I went back a bit just to explain something. When I got into urban and regional planning, I saw the uniqueness of planning, right? The problem should be, I should be disinterested in urban planning. Today, I can tell you the things I learned from urban planning back in school have defined who I am. I work in the policy space advising government, and one of the biggest things planners should be able to do is the ability to understand things in the global space. So when I see a problem in society, so when you see poverty, you contextualize it and use policy to see how to solve that poverty in the society. And that's something I learned from planning. So it was purposeful that God sent me to planning school, not architecture school. God had a design. Now, that crisis that you probably are going to find has a supernatural design for making you into something better. So it expanded my understanding. So, and you know, I can go on and go on.
Just hold it there, because I think we are able to, we can see a picture. How do you identify, surely I'm in a crisis?
Yes.
You know, there are people actually, I think, is it denial or just lack of insight or foresight? How do you literally, you know why I like doing that is because there are people watching. And sometimes they say, I'm not in crisis. How would you define you are in crisis? You know, it's like this guy who said, he said you are broke. He was broke. And so he was asked, how old are you? So when he mentioned his years, he said, you are not broke. You are poor.
You are poor. Absolutely.
So how do you say the one is in crisis? How do I define that I'm in crisis?
So I could use different metrics, right? But one of the easiest metrics is, while I was defining, I was talking about when you find yourself at a crossroad and you find out your resources, your competence, your skill sets cannot actually help you make that decision. That is one way. The other way is when you find out that despite you might have all the skill sets, you might have even the resources, because actually rich people do get in crisis. You find yourself at an instance where, and I'll use a practical example, you find that maybe for some reason a billionaire and their tax accountant did not just submit their taxes on time, or the accountant felt, we could do a good one and they skimmed tax paying, right? What happens is eventually when the tax agency finds out, it becomes a problem. That's a crisis for them already. They have the money, but somebody did just not just do their job for paying their fees. I give you a typical example again. Recently, during the Oscars that just happened a few days ago, Will Smith actually slapped Chris Rock. Will Smith is in crisis. We already know that the world is in crisis. We moved out of a crisis from the COVID when we couldn't travel. You might have your money, but you can't spend it.
You can't spend it.
Then from the COVID, I like to call it the COVID times. Then we moved to the Russo-Ukrainian war again. So crisis takes all shapes and forms. I would say another very, very important one right now: internal conflict. A mental way. Sometimes people even feel that they don't fit in. They are misfits. Maybe I'm even someone of great competence and talent, but internally I'm struggling to accept that I have great competence and talent.
That's a very serious area, by the way, Abiola. A few months ago, Kenya lost a very, very, I would call young and very talented and rising doctor who was handling a specialty. She just walked into her car, wrote a very long letter, and because she's a medic, she took some of the medication. She knew what she was doing. And in the morning, people found in the parking lot, she's gone.
She's gone.
And I mean, there's nothing you could say about her. One, she lives in an upmarket area, drives a great, it's great.
Yeah.
She has a good machine.
Yeah.
I mean, what you could say, this is...
She's living the life.
Yes, you could call that. She has great family. The father, the mother, they look up to her. And she looks up to them. They are not, they are not the struggling parents who would come every day at your door.
Yeah,
it's the people who celebrate you. But she took her life because of internal.
Yes.
Maybe we need to think about it for a minute before we go for a break. We're about to go for a break. Okay. The time is already gone.
Wow.
How do you? And especially internal conflict, is it that people are going through denial, or is it that a situation where you don't even recognize?
I think the first point is recognizing when it starts and really addressing the issue, right? It's not just denial. It's the fact that you are not wanting to deal with the issue. Denial is one thing, but actually looking at the issue head on, what may be causing this? And that's why I said, when you're at a crisis point and you're not choosing to learn. Now, the learning process actually lets you first identify that you have a gap. Then begin to identify what you need to address the gap. I'll give you a typical example. Africa has the potential of probably becoming the highest producer of food in the world. But have we identified that gap as a continent? Africa has the potential of feeding the world. Today, our natural resource is what actually drives the Western economy. But are we taking the stance, of actually saying we want to feed and use our resource to grow ourselves first before we are growing the global economy? So that is a very critical thing of, if I identify that problem and I see that there is a gap and I begin to look for ways to fill that gap. Now, in looking for ways to fill that gap, I need to seek help. Whether you're searching, and quite interestingly, there's so much great material online, but one of the things I like to say is look to God. You see, God provides enormous. See, I tell people, there are so many things I found out that create balance for you that is already written in the Bible. I give you an example. Paul wrote to the Corinthians and said that there is no temptation that is not common to man. Meaning the same thing that you're going through, there is another man that has gone through that.
Yes.
Meaning you can choose to learn from that person. And then he says he will not allow any temptation to overcome your faith. So, and not to make it so, religious, but in trueness of it, the Bible gives you a balance of thought. I usually did not understand what suicide meant until I went to certain crises in life where I was at a crossroad. But the fact and the truth that the Word of God became a comfort to my spirit and my soul, my mind was able to move from making the wrong decision. And the fact that there was love, surrounding me. I had so much love around me to make me feel I will disappoint people. I will disappoint God. Love has been invested in me. Sometimes we do not tap into the goodness we have around us. We are we are so focused on the negative.
Wow. I think I need to stop you there. And Christine is online. She's saying crisis is individualized.
Yes.
It's individualized. She continues to say a crisis is a crisis in the eyes of the beholder. Facing or addressing or coping mechanisms determine the outcome.
So, quite interestingly, I said something. As much as crisis is individualized, because we're unique, even our DNA is unique. There's no other you. However, there are elements of you because you did not create yourself. What do I mean by that? There are elements. So, if you do a DNA test, they will tell you this is the most likely son of a person, and this is a person from this particular family.
Yes.
So they are connected.
Yeah.
Essentially, there's no crisis that you have that is unique. And I'll use a word. There's nothing new under the sun.
It's true. There's nothing new
So
under the
in
sun.
the
Just repeating
yes,
itself.
exactly, in the uniqueness of life. So in economics or in global, economics, you find out that they said events repeat themselves.
Eventually, yeah, it's true. Eventually,
So
it
go
fits
back
success.
to the past, find men. You see, the problem is, and that's why I said crisis creates an opportunity for you to develop and learn. And that word learn is very critical. When you find yourself at a crossroad, when you find yourself in crisis, what you need to first is to stop. Research. Who has gone through something that may be similar to this? How do I handle something like this? What exactly is the problem? Sometimes people are actually in crisis, they don't even recognize the problem.
Oh, right.
So a person, you talked about when you started, we talked about the rich man that was in debt for $2 billion.
Yeah.
And the poor man that was in debt for $200, right?
Yeah.
Now, the difference between the two of them is that the rich man might be using debt to build wealth,
Yes.
while the poor man does not understand the capacity how to use debt to build wealth. So we all know this, that you can use debt to build wealth. If, for instance, I go borrow money from the bank and I start building real estate, and I use the real estate, not me, right? The real estate as an insurance to the bank,
Yeah.
and the bank can, if I do that as many times for refinancing my home, I will be rich. Because when I sell the homes, the bank makes money, I make money, and the bank is ready to give me money because I'm investing it. But in reality, I'm in debt. You see the difference? So even in recognizing the perspective of what your problem is very critical, and helping to shape how did somebody transform something like this that I've been through to be able to address, or find opportunities in their own challenge.
Wow. My question again would be, I like that statement you said, stop.
Yes.
Stop. Most of us don't stop. And I think that's the cause of a lot of, I'll give you a case in point. During the lockdowns, we began dealing with the major mental problems. People who are used to a certain routine, going to the office, a job is there, payment is coming, they have this life they have to upkeep. I don't know why there's a lifestyle. All of a sudden it's cut short. I think
Yes.
some companies were looking for an opportunity to lay off.
Yes.
All of a sudden say we cannot continue, our bills are too high, we have to lay off, and you can understand. And so through that, even the government will not intervene.
True.
Because normally the government would intervene in such
Definitely.
cases, but now because even the government believes there's a crisis, so a lot of people are put off, and we saw a lot of depression, a lot of suicide. Did this happen to you guys?
Absolutely. So just so you know, and I think you probably would know this, I lost a sister just at the start of COVID, and I lost my stepsister for both COVID related issues and other health issues as well. You see, and it was difficult because at that point I was also transitioning jobs, and it was difficult to think of how do you find help, right? You can't bring her back to life, or you can't bring them back to life in this case, and you're stuck. And I'll use a practical example in addition to that. I work with a company as a vice president for partnership and growth, and one of the strategy that the company is using is developing IoT technology to solve one of Africa's critical problems.
We'll be discussing that. In fact, I want you to talk about it after these. We're going for a break.
Okay.
We don't have enough time. We just have to, because that's important, because we need to meet. It's our need. It's meet. Let me, in a few words, do you have in your mind some solutions that have come up that are key during moments of crisis?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We started with one. First is to stop.
And I'm saying some solutions in terms of which became like even businesses.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about it after the break, because there are businesses enough in Kenya. We have one big mega. It's not even expanding to other nations.
Absolutely.
Just out of a crisis.
Yes.
There was a crisis. Somebody came up with a solution.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going for a break. As we come back, please prepare, because we are going to be discussing about solutions in moments of crisis. They're actually called crisis innovations.
Innovations, yes.
See you after the break.
Hello everyone, my name is Blessing Kendi, 11 years old, the author of this book, A Child with a Vision. I want to change 1 billion children in the world. I ask you to support my talent through buying this book at 300 Kenya shillings. My book is about the importance of education, how to use money wisely, discovering and growing talents, how to know God. I also have a vision for the needy and orphan, so I ask friends, churches and companies to help me support them through buying this book for them. Thank you.
Good marketing makes the company look smart. Great marketing makes the customer feel smart. Are you looking for a place to advertise your upcoming conference, church meeting, or ladies' meeting? Look no further. Elevate TV is offering you a chance to advertise from as low as 5,000 Kenyan shillings. Talk to us today. Call us on 0705 872237.
Well, we are back, and we are discussing opportunities in crisis, and we've been able to, I think Abiola is a wellspring. He has too much information, but keep it up. Please remember to share. Some of you online, please write the notes. Let's comment. If you have a question, please ask it out. He's able to, and he's willing, more than willing, to answer you as we go through this conversation. Abiola, innovations that have come out of great, challenges. Let me give you a case in point in Kenya. We had a challenge of the unbanked community.
Yeah.
People were not banking. I mean, the banking sector was so out of range. I mean, when you thought about banking, as a matter of fact, when I finished my high school, I wanted to open an account. And so my mother sent me and told me, go and open an account at that bank. I tell you a true story. A lady looked at me from head to toe. I'll never forget that experience. I think the only thing I forgot is the face, but I remember she had dreads. She looked at me from head to toe. She was working on her computer, and then I said, I would want to open an account. She stopped what she was doing. She turned to me. She looked at me from head to toe. Then she asked me, what did you just say?
What did you just say?
I said, I wanted to open an account. Can you afford it? Can you even afford it? I walked out. And then later, of course, I told this to one of my friends who works in the bank. I said that was very wrong. She came, actually opened the account in my house. But later, somebody picked up that as a challenge, because we discovered many people were keeping money under the mattress. Sure. I don't know, Africa, why we like the mattress. And later came up with what we call not the new M-Pesa innovation. You could be able to bank money, you could be able to save, you could send money to your bank. And today is a global success enterprise and a success. Do you have some in Nigeria that were born out of moments of crisis?
Absolutely. I can probably name over 100 for you at the top of my head. So one of the things that I've been uniquely blessed with is I've been in between the design, development, implementation of different interesting innovations, and I've been able to also see and experience other innovations. Now, whilst you talk about M-Pesa, I will use a financial example, and I give a few, and I'll speak about others as well. I remember that one of the biggest problems with Nigeria is we have an issue of trust when it comes to financial transactions.
Yes.
So there's an innovation that we did, but people do not recognize that as an innovation generally, where you get instant payment alerts. So when I send money to you in the bank, similar to what you see as M-Pesa today, where you send money over the phone and the person gets it. When I send money to you as a bank, in your bank account, you get an instant notification and you get an instant settlement. The reason why is to give you confidence to say, I have actually completed the transaction.
Yes.
I can tell you today, in the Western world, you do not actually have that. So there's quite a lot of things going on positively in Africa that we need to actually recognize. I give you an example. The mobile penetration in Africa has created more jobs that you could have possibly created with creating, let's call it, manufacturing hubs. Not to say that manufacturing is not great. In fact, manufacturing drives other parts of innovation, because there are certain things you want to develop as hardware, right? But because we don't have the manufacturing capacity, I have to ship it up to India, Pakistan, and China to actually make them and send them back to Africa, which basically is increasing jobs on that side. But to speak to small specific innovations, and that was something in the banking sector. We have innovations in Nigeria and in West Africa, and some of them that are recognized. But are payment solutions. One of the biggest is one of the unicorns that is going on to be a super unicorn very soon, Flutterwave. I work for one of them as a vice president of growth and partnership, which was what I was talking about earlier. It's called Grid, and the focus is basically using IoT technology to solve the cold chain infrastructural problem of Africa. I give you a typical example.
Okay. I want you to speak slowly. Sometimes we run and miss some words.
Yes. So Grid focuses on, and I'll describe the problem first.
Yeah.
Every time we plant crops, despite we are not planting enough in Africa, when we get to the post-harvest stage, a lot of our crops are wasted. As per statistics, if you think about tomatoes, especially in Nigeria, more than 55% of your crops post-harvest is actually wasted as a result of lack of cold chain infrastructure.
Cold
chain infrastructure.
Storage.
So from storage to logistics, because on two sides. Because usually what we do is put them on the back of trucks, stack them, which actually crushes the tomatoes or the crops. And by the time they're getting to destination, you have quite a number of them that have wasted. That is in transit. For storage, when you harvest your tomatoes, you just put them in regular barns, right? And you close them up because of security, right? So because you've closed them up and you've stashed them there, instantly they begin to rot because temperature has changed.
Yes.
So all of those things affect, our food production processes. Africa is known for its rivers, so we do a lot of fishing. I could tell you that more than 35% of seafood and food products actually go to waste after they've been taken from the sea.
Wow.
And that's because there's a lack of infrastructure for cold chain. Because we would use regular ice. Now, so every time you find people complain of, there's something called food safety and there's something called patient safety. People actually eat food and they get food poisoning. The source of food poisoning many times is actually even from the food itself. These are the result of transportation. So there's already a bacteria.
Actually, the storage. I was somewhere and the children were like, there was a school where it was a school. Children became very unwell. And they found the food was clean, everything, but then they discovered the storage. The storage.
So, if you look at that storage might be improper for the food produce that they actually have. And temperature fluctuates. Food is affected by temperature fluctuation.
Actually, it was a temperature issue because it was cereal, and they had put it on the floor.
Oh, wow. That's big.
Storing it in a place, putting it on the floor.
Yes.
Then, from a conversation I had, when you put cereal on the floor,
yes,
what it does, it gathers, some mold?
Mold, yes.
And then they are aflatoxin.
They become toxins, and, mold inside the stomach is a serious thing. Some people, if it's not quickly identified or managed, the person can actually die. That's how serious it is. So if you look at the, agricultural value chain, specifically, you find out that most of the farmers, apart from just food safety, are impoverished, because many of the produce they actually, farm are lost. And that's critical. So what we've done is, whilst we're not able to fully, as a continent, build all of the cold chain infrastructure that we need today, we're able to use specific technology solutions to help you monitor in real time what is happening in terms of temperature, humidity, and location of your commodities in real time. Now, what that does fundamentally is, I'll give you a typical example and a scenario. to make you understand. Now, in animal production, either for broilers or layers that gives us eggs, what happens is when they are day old, they are just moved from the hatchery. In Nigeria, you just put them on the back of trucks, in their boxes, and move them to the farms. Now, if you do stop them in transit, what would happen is the heat from the sun will lower the quality of the birds if they don't die. So you would have a lot of runs at the end of the day. So if the farmer is going to look at his cost-benefit analysis and return on investment, you find out that many of those day-old chicks would not be able to perform at optimal level.
Wow.
So first, he has lost money in transit for moving those day-old chicks. Second, what is expecting as an output, the future investment, or the future return rather, that is expecting, has already been cut short. So what that helps you do with our technology is that it actually helps you monitor the temperature. So if the temperature goes up immediately, so I give an example, if the temperature goes, let's say the temperature for the chick should be, let's give an example of chicks to be between just room temperature, slightly above room temperature. Now if the temperature is now beginning to go to 40 degrees, automatically, I give an example, what happens is I get an SMS and an email that the temperature of my consignment has gone out of range. Immediately, I also know the location because it's telling me in real time where that consignment is. So if I do have a logistics company that is managing that process, I just pick up the phone and have a conversation. Why is my consignment in transit locked somewhere? And I've seen examples of that where farmers actually literally lost all of their commodities, and this is applicable to different industries. Is it in the pharmaceutical space where drugs become poison if there's a quality assurance issue?
Vaccines that are expired.
Vaccines that are expired, or not just expiration. So I give you Moderna, AstraZeneca, all have, and routine immunization must stay between the 2 to 8 degrees temperature range. When they go out of that temperature range, there's a problem. Now, when they enter into that temperature range, you must use the vaccines in the next 30 days. Right? So if you do not know that, it becomes a problem. So you can actually be creating an epidemic while solving another epidemic.
I think, and so this innovation was, you are part of that innovation.
Absolutely, yes.
Taking care of, you said the cold
chain, yes.
Yeah. So, and how is the reception?
Absolutely phenomenal. I give you a few statistics. Within the space of the last 12 months to about 18 months, we've tracked over 12 million commodities, vaccines and food commodities, with the value of $198 million. And these commodities would either have been bad, and I'm speaking to vaccines and food commodities as well, would either have been bad or arrived in, lower quality conditions that could have become poisons or hazardous to those that actually got them. But because we were able to see them, some decisions were made. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and we were talking about how vaccines land at the airport and they leave them on the tarmac in the sun.
Yeah.
And he was saying it was peculiar to Kenya.
Photos.
I said, no, it's peculiar to everywhere in the world. It happens in Lagos, it happens in Abuja, it happens in Congo, it would always happen. The question is, how do you ensure that they are within the temperature range? Because if they are not, what would definitely happen is either you have to destroy all of those vaccines, or if you do administer them, they will become, hazardous to the people that actually get them.
Wow.
And that goes to things like insulin, oxytocin. Many of our medications are, in fact, the quality of a medication can be compromised by just temperature and humidity.
Wow. It's a very interesting insight.
Absolutely.
We still have a short time to go, and I want to ask you another question because you give us more light on that on your innovation.
Yeah.
Africa is viewed to be a home of crisis, or you can call it is it humanitarian challenges?
Yes.
Let's use them challenges.
Yes.
we have notable African innovations, like you say. I mean, in the West, they don't have what we have. In fact, I remember one time a man from a country I've not mentioned came and he was visiting us, and we needed to send money. He said, "You've just sent money on your phone?" Yeah, told him, yeah. And the guy has received it. It's very simple, and he said, "Wow, we don't have that. They have another mode of doing it." So you find we are. That's a perception. Africa is a home of challenges. But, from the COVID lockdowns and the way things went, I think Africa managed itself.
Absolutely.
Great.
True.
As much as everything went on, there was a lot of difference in the African effect.
True.
And a lot of people came up with innovations. I saw a young man who came up with even drones.
Yes.
He created a drone, was it in Rwanda? Created a drone that could drop, vaccines into the very, very deep places. I saw another guy from Zimbabwe. He's doing amazing things. We have guys here in Kenya. Do you have in that space? Do you have any innovation that came up?
Absolutely. I'll give you one of it. So one of the things that happens with crisis is that you are not able to quantify the drug commodities that you require because everybody is not seeing what is going on anywhere. So what we did was create an end-to-end visibility for inventory management. Because what would happen is if I pull drugs or commodities out of a facility without necessarily at the center knowing what amount of commodities they need, what would happen is that you always have stock out or shortages. So that's why you find out when you get
stocking or shortages.
So you want to have a situation where I can understand the amount of commodities I need to actually procure and the amount of commodities I need to actually be able to push to specific areas or specific regions. So I use a typically, just a very simple example. The delivery rate of mothers around the different counties of Kenya is different. So the demand fundamentally of oxytocin as a life-saving commodity during birth delivery is different. The supply is supposed to match the demand. So why would I give an example, 50 packs of oxytocin to a facility that only takes 2 deliveries a month? Do you get what I'm trying to say? So that last mile visibility is something that, because fundamentally our healthcare is written on paper. Our healthcare system runs literally on paper. Now, and without you seeing what the drug need is, you can't actually meet it. So we created an inventory management system and incorporated that inventory management system into our IoT solution. So fundamentally, it merges 2 things. You are able to see the quality of your commodity and at the same time say what amount of commodity you require in different locations, essentially managing quantifications. So one of the biggest problems of Africa or any country in this space is, how do I quantify the amount of resources I need to deploy in a particular place? Right? So what we did was help use data from the facilities to be able to actually help that quantification to happen. And this was seriously successful because what that helped do is that you then are able to mitigate the risk of people getting to facilities and not finding commodities. Or, there's something called the 3 barriers of healthcare. And one of them is when you get to the health facility, you don't find doctors, equipment, drugs. So if you want to measure quality healthcare delivery, availability, affordability, and accessibility to drugs, life-saving commodities is very critical. And with our innovation, we were able to, bring all of those things. So the quality was assured, and the quantity to be able to meet, the need or the demand was also assured.
Let me ask you, with that kind of, you just said something and it clicked on my mind. We lost a lot of, there was a lot of, during the COVID drug distribution of, drugs. I think there was a lot of wastage.
True.
Because drugs were just being pushed, and I'm sure. Did you experience wastage
So I want to give you a bit of statistics. Even in vaccination, they try to put wastage as part of vaccination process. And it's quite interesting because, you know, and depending on the terrain, wastage you can go from 0% to as high as 70%. In Africa has the highest amount of wastages when it comes to drug commodities and vaccines. And I'll tell you why. Our storage system, our infrastructure system. But you know, with solutions like ours, one of the things we've been able to help you recognize is how do you minimize those wastages? And what really causes wastages? One, maybe in transit, the commodities have gone through temperature excursions that literally go out of range and they've become poisons, right? What you would do is you would have to destroy those commodities because you can serve them. If you do serve them, like I said, you cause a problem. It become a pandemic, another epidemic of its own proportion. So what happens is government is losing money or international development is losing money when they give those drugs are destroyed because, of course, you cannot use them. However, the positive light with that is when those commodities arrive in the right quality, right? What happens is you can then begin to see the pattern of usage. With that analysis of data of the pattern of usage, what happens is you can determine how much you need to actually supply. So if you are supplying 200 boxes before, and you notice that the 200 boxes that used to take you a week to resupply, to fill their new order, is taking 2 days, you can see the pattern from the consumption. Then you can up the volume so that you can have a bit of a buffer stock in addition to your 200. So you can probably double it depend on the demand that you're getting.
Let's go back to our people.
Yes.
Young people. And because we need to wind up. I'll just read you one of the comments that is put here. You don't have to display your inadequacies because of your crisis. You don't have to display your inadequacies because of your crisis. Is crisis a time when somebody says you will know you when you're in crisis?
Absolutely. So I agree with that statement. But one of the things I began to see,
somebody called Pauline.
Oh, fantastic! Well, one of the things I began to recognize is, what exactly. And I said, talking about learning. First thing is when you find yourself in a crisis, you quickly begin to learn. So you begin to see what are my inadequacies, because the crisis is even the crisis you are in is a function of decisions you took in the past. So fundamentally, it's a function of your inadequacies,
whether you took them or not.
Exactly. So in fact, I say to you, and I dare say it, everything that happens to a person is a function of their action and inaction. Whether you took an action or you chose not to take an action. Our politics today, our political landscape is a function of our action and our inaction. And that's why when we started, I said young people should get involved in conversations around leadership, governance, and development in Africa. If we don't, there's going to be a problem because young people are the future.
But you see, we don't need to go that way. You see, African leaders use the youth, a few young people to
as
go
tools.
Out there, use them as tools to bargain for their interests, because currently we are in a political season right now. Everybody on the campaign ground is a young person.
I agree.
Everybody. There's those people being paid to drive through, those people being paid to heckle, those people being paid to do all these kind of things. They're young people. But at the end of the day, they are not on the table
exactly
to negotiate for those leadership positions. They are not on the table to floor these guys and ask them, by the way, what do you have for us?
Yes.
Because we are in a government which got into power. Then we began, of course, when they get into power now, you begin to see these ministers is supposed to come here, all these appointments. None of them was a young person. And in the young people, they put one of their own. So at the end of the day, the people who did all the donkey work are out there. But we don't need to talk about that. It's very discouraging because young people of Africa, I don't know what will happen to them. I think we need the Egypt kind.
So what I like to call it is that we need both a mind revolution of how we see things as young people. How do we get the right young person, because that's also another thing.
Yeah.
The right young person to the table. How do we assist the right young person to get to the table? Not that they are perfect in themselves, which is where the inadequacies that Pauline talked about is, but it is critical for us to recognize that as humans we would have inadequacies. However, how do I build the competence to first be able to recognize that I have an inadequacy, accept it, then build my competence, my skill set, and my lifestyle in such a way to address those inadequacies?
I think in Africa, and we must accept this part, in Africa, politics is about personal interests. It's about, because we will have the young people that will go in. Then they'll begin to see for you to stay here because it has privileges.
Yes.
Every in Africa, it's only in Africa where politics have privileges. They begin to see the privileges. And the next thing they are going to is begin to exploit those privileges for their own good.
Yes.
Now, for them to stay there, they need to build wealth. How do you build wealth in Africa? Through politics. You know how it goes. So at the end of the day, even if you say the right person, we still will lose them somewhere. We lose a lot of them. And I think the only person we can say, and even him, he has been accused of major things, a South African young man who rose from the ranks.
Yes.
We may not mention him, but we all know him. But he's been able to be a vocal person. But unfortunately, now he became the same thing. He's using the young people again for his own interests, fighting for them. I think Africa has I don't know what we shall do, because I think after the exits of people like Sankara, people like the Ghanaian, or what was his name, Ghanaian president, the people who are liberation,
Kwame Nkrumah,
young Kwame, the people who are they were liberators.
Yes.
I think after that, we don't have that. We just have people with interests.
So if I just delve a little into the conversation of Pan-Africanism, I think the fundamental problem first is young Africans don't understand that the Kenyan is my brother, and the survival of the Kenyan is my survival. We don't recognize. We're so, and that's there was a question that talked about crisis is individualized, and that's where we somewhat kind of shift every part of our life have become individualized. We focus on problems as if we are the only ones going through it. So when that young man got into office, he found out that I need to be rich. The word "I," it changed from the word "we," which is supposed to be we as young people. Young people need to be properly represented. What young people do, and I'm saying this to support what you said, is that when they get into power, they remove the ladder. What you should do, you should build more ladders to get other young people to come up the chain. You have a representation on the table. You now have an opportunity, the same opportunity you cried about that you didn't have, that has been created for you. You now have a seat on the table. You need to create more opportunities. Now, the reason why Africa constantly remains poor is that we've moved from we to I. When I stay in high, what happens is that the resource that we could have all benefited and grow into something great. Now, there was an analysis I heard yesterday, this was very powerful, that if you compared which is the biggest economy between Nigeria and England, and you will quickly say England, but the population of Nigeria is probably times 10 population of England. But the GDP of England and GDP per capita, the amount of money in people's pockets, makes England a higher purchasing economy than Nigeria. Meaning that if we begin to put more money in the pockets of people or give people the ability to generate wealth, then it means that Nigeria can compete with America, which is the largest economy, debatably, right, in the world. So when I change the conversation of economic advancement from we to I, what I'm doing is I am pushing forward further the poverty agenda.
Good. We have less than 3 minutes.
Absolutely.
Time is up. Look at that camera. And you're here for a reason. You're here for a reason.
Yeah.
Look into that camera. Speak right into the face of most of the people who are watching, especially on television, young people, and begin to address them. If you're in crisis, what should you do? In short few minutes before you give your parting shot.
Thank you so much. it is inevitable that we will find ourselves in crisis. We will always find ourselves in crisis. Whether as a people, whether as a community, whether as a society, we would always find ourselves in crisis. There are three categories of leadership that people say. There are people that say they are born as leaders, there are people that are eventful leaders, and there are transformational leaders. And one of the key things I've discovered is that when events happen or where crises happen, you have two types of leaders that emerge. Transformational leaders and leaders that only stay during that process of crisis. It is important for you to recognize that when you find yourself in a crisis, you first need to, how has this come about? What brought us here? What actions and decisions did I make or did not make? I need to first analyze the problem. I don't need to deny that it exists. I need to accept that I'm here now, and I begin to analyze, how do I get myself of this circumstance? Now, sometimes we do not even have the competence to get out. Then you need to seek help. Now, seeking help does not necessarily mean that you go meet a person. It might require you meet a person, depending on the kind of crisis that you're in. So if you're in a mental health crisis, you need to seek help. I like to say there's a place for a pastor and there's a place for a psychologist. Those are two different things. However, there's a balance that the Word of God gives you in all of this. It is very important that while seeking help, in your help, you should research who has gone through this before.
Okay.
How did they get out of it? What steps in my own particular position do I need to take to get out of it?
Yes.
If you are intentional, and that's very important, if you are intentional about getting out of that crisis, there is a long Swedish proverb I heard. It says, "He that longs for a song to sing will find one."
Beautiful.
If you are intentional about getting out of your crisis, you will find a way out.
I'll hold you there. Our time is up.
Yes.
As we look at time, I think that will be our closing. That will be our closing mark. If you're looking for a song to sing, you'll find one.
You'll find it.
And I think that's what we have to end it here. This has been Elevate Television to you, bringing the Morning Digest. And our guest has been Abiola, all the way from Lagos. And we want to thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for just finding time. We woke you up early, beyond your time, to come to the studio to record this. Thank you.
Thank you
may
so
the
much.
Lord bless you. Remember, even when you're out there, keep it elevate.
Absolutely.
Keep
Thank
it
you so
elevate.
much. Thank you so
God
much.
bless you. Have a great day.